Okay, so I want to follow on from last week's message, which, does anyone remember the name of the message? Because I don't. You will find what you seek. Thanks for that, Freya. You will find what you seek. What we learned last week was that actually this passage is used often in saying seeking you will find. It's like, yes, if I seek God, I'll find him. If I knock on God's door, he'll answer it, all that kind of stuff. But actually, if we understand that if we seek the opposite, we'll also find it. If we knock on the wrong doors, they will be opened. It wasn't just about seeking God. It was about understanding that if we seek rejection, guess what? You'll find it. If you seek drugs, guess what? You'll find it. If you seek lust, you'll find it. Seek comfort in toxic relationships because you're lonely, you'll find it. If we lack self-worth, you will find a life where you hate yourself. If you seek it, you'll find it. Some people are like, I'm so glad I wasn't here for that message. If we run from God and run into the world and all that the world has to offer, you will find it. You will get it. Is anyone a testament of that, knowing that when you run from God and you go and seek the opposite, yeah? You find it, we find it. But we also learn as well that even if we turn away from God and we go to seek what we want to, whatever it is we seek, there are also consequences that go with that. That actually, it doesn't just end with us being in a mess. It can also end with leading or affecting others that leads them into a mess or leaves a mess behind us. All really simply because we had the choice to choose to change. And we could choose Jesus, like I said last week, or we could choose the other door. And when we choose the other door, it just leads us into a mess. Just turn to the person next to you and say, keep the change. Oh, thanks very much. Could you tell I was struggling? Thank you very much. Yeah, sorry, turn to the person next to you and say, keep the change. If you lent that person money, I'm sorry. Okay, there are two doors in the story, like I shared last week. One, Jesus is knocking on the door, and you've got to answer it. Yeah, do you remember that? And the other one, you need to knock on, and the other side of it is not good. You know, Satan's on the other end, the world's on the other end, all the things that are going to lead you to stuff that you don't want to go down. But you have to actually knock on that door. And this one you actually just have to open because Jesus is knocking. So today's message is gonna help, I hope, because last week you had the lesson. Okay, all right, Rich, I hear you. I need to change. Okay, all right. I don't need to go down that door. I want to go down that door. I want to change. But what often happens is we want to change. Who likes to think that they want to change? Yeah, I think we want to change, don't we? We know that there are things we don't like about ourselves. There are things that need to align with God. There's things that need to go. There's things we maybe need to do. Like, we all have that challenge in our lives all the time. We have God. We have our conscience, but we also have the Holy Spirit guiding us and showing us the things that we need to change. We want to change. I think it's within us to want to change. It's there. But what can often happen, what often I see is that when a message is preached, like last week, or the Spirit of God moves in a certain way, and people are convicted to want to change, it's a great start. But then what happens is we start seeing people like still in the same mess that they were in, despite the word being brought or the experience happening. And people are like, I don't understand it. I don't understand. I want to change. I want to change. Why am I still in the mess? Why am I not changing? Why is it not shifting? I've come forward for prayer. You know, someone prayed for me. I acknowledged, that I needed to listen to what was said, and that was for me. So I needed to sign up for that and get whatever I needed. Things like this. I got prayer for change, but nothing happened. I surrendered to God, but why do I still feel like this? Why do I still do the things that I've already told God I don't want anymore? Anyone relating with these things? Yeah? I want to change, but I'm not changing. Why? I don't get it. Why is it not happening? I've said everything I've needed to say. I've done everything I think I've needed to do. I got the prayer. I put my hand up at the right time. And then what we do is we do three things. We blame either God. So we blame God. We say, I did all I should, God. I prayed. I responded. I went to the front. I did everything that I am meant to do. I can't for 1 second see that there was anything that I didn't do that you wouldn't ask me to do. I went and did it. Someone prayed for me. So we can often blame God and say, look, obviously, clearly, there's something wrong with what you're doing because I'm doing everything I think I should be doing. We almost align it with, I prayed, I'm in a good place, God. I don't understand. Why is this all going on? Yeah, anyone relate to that one? We can blame God. Okay, the other one is we can blame others. So we can blame others like, your prayer didn't work. Yeah? Anyone relate to that one? Yeah? Some people come up to you and say, you prayed for me, but it didn't work. You're not a very good Christian. Obviously, you have no power. And you're like, oh, great, brilliant. Yeah? Or the preaching was clearly wrong. You know, when you said it, I felt this, but now I think actually you were wrong. You know, we'd look for reasons to blame why suddenly the change hasn't happened. And then the other one is we blame ourselves. But not in a humble way. Not like, oh, Lord, just search me. Maybe there's something here I need you to deal with. Maybe there's something I need to look at. It's not that kind of blame. It's a defeatist blame. You know, the blame that we kind of put on ourselves that goes kind of along the lines of, you know, well, clearly there's something wrong with me. That one, you know, it's almost like a flip of, well, maybe there's something not quite right with me. Obviously, clearly, I've always said that there was something strange with me. So obviously, God can't help me because of who I am. It's almost like a defeatist blame, not like a searching blame, not seeking me. Like, God, search me to see if there is anything wrong. It's already like an attitude of like, there's clearly something wrong with me, which is why I can't change. God can't change me. I knew it. Anyone ever said that? Yeah? God can't change me. I knew he couldn't change me because clearly I'm the one that has bigger issues than anyone else. Yeah? I'm the one that God, when Jesus died on the cross, he didn't quite die for me. Yeah? He couldn't quite. He didn't have enough power for me. Everyone else, absolutely. But for me, nah, there's something not quite right with me. My problem is stronger and more powerful than God. This is what we do. Can I just check something? Is the other mic still on? Is the radio mic there? Yeah. Yeah, can you just turn it off? Yeah, okay. It's okay, though. I'm here to help. It's all right, yeah, that's right. I'm here to help you. To find what the Word of God says about why we can't change when we think we've done everything we needed to do to change. Okay, listen to this. Wanting to change is great. Everyone agree? Asking to change is awesome. Do you agree? Submitting yourself for change is really good. Yeah? But it's all pointless if you don't change your location. Thank you very much at the back. Okay. Wanting to change is great. Asking to change is great. Even sort of putting yourself in a position to want to change is great. But if you don't change your location, you're not going to change. So, for example, last week, I'm saying that we're in this place here and we have a choice. Now, the problem is if we're not in the right place, we can want to change. We know it's the right thing to do. But if we're still in the wrong place, we're still being influenced by that very thing that we want to be escaping from. Do you get it? Yeah? Why do we see sometimes that someone's getting baptized today, Tony's getting baptized today? Why do we sometimes see people get baptized? They give a great testimony. They're like, yes, I want to follow Jesus. All the great stuff. We baptize people. Why do we see them struggle next? Why do we see people that get prayer and come forward and say, yes, I want to do that? Why do we still see them struggle with the stuff that they came and got prayer for? Why does this still happen? Often after a message is preached or God moves, people respond. But suddenly after that, whether it's a week later, a month later, a little bit further down the line, you're back where you were, How does that happen? Why does that happen? A surrendered heart is not really surrendered if a person is still in the place that causes them to stumble or causes them to be tempted. You've got good intentions, but because you still stood where you shouldn't be stood, the influence is still going to impact you and affect you. And suddenly we say, but I got prayer. That word was amazing. And I was like, that was for me. Isn't that enough, God? The guy at the front, I think his name's Rich, he said, come forward. I went forward. I thought that was that was the thing. But it really doesn't matter how powerful the prayer is, how powerful the preach is, and also really how God moves. If straight after that, you're still going to go back to the same place. Change won't happen if you stay in the pit. If you sat in the pit will continue to influence you. Does anyone recognize that? I do. When I'm sat in the pit and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. You know? And then I'm like, eventually, because you wake up a bit, you're like, oh yeah, I'm sat in the pit. Like, clearly, my surroundings aren't great. And I'm feeling miserable because my surroundings aren't great. And therefore, it is influencing how I feel, even though I'm saying, God, help me, release me. And God's like, there's a ladder. You know, climb up the ladder and get out of the pit. God's like, I've made a way for you. Just move. Just go. Get out. And you're like, oh, in the pit. And God's like, it's not even that deep. You know, like sometimes, have you ever seen those films? You know, you ever seen those films where people are like, you know, they fall in the water and they're like, I'm drowning. And they say, oh, stand up. And they're like, it's right up to their ankles, you know. It's kind of like, can be like that. Oh, Lord, it's so awful. God's like, just stand up. And you're like, oh, yeah, it's not that bad. Because we're being influenced by our surroundings. We're being impacted by what's around us. And what you are in still holds power over you. So if you come to church and you heard a preach, or you've been in the worship, or the Holy Spirit's moved, and you've responded, praise God for that. Don't stop doing that. That's where it starts. But it's not where it ends either. It's where it starts, but then the process after that is to say, okay, I need to consciously now choose to change my location. Because I'm still a human being that's still going to be tempted the same. I'm still going to struggle with the same stuff. So why am I in next to the stuff that's going to influence me? Why am I around the things that are going to lead me to the area that I'm trying to escape from? Does people relate to this? Because for me, it just makes complete sense that when we want to change, the reason we don't see change, not only in our own lives, but maybe in others, is because they're still sat in the same place. Turn to the person next to you and say, keep the change. Keep the change. This is what happens when we know truth. We know right from wrong. We know the direction we should go in. This isn't like, I didn't know. We know. We know right from wrong, don't we? We do. We know what direction we should go in, and we know when we're in a direction that isn't aligning with God, that we're not in the right place. We know it. Nothing is changing because we won't change our location. Let me just give you a picture example. Okay, so last week I gave the example that this is kind of your life, the room, yeah? You're in the middle. Jesus is knocking on the door, and he's asking you to open the door, okay? You've just got to go, you just got to open it. He comes in. He says he dines with you. He fellowships with you. We sang that he walk with him. We talk with him, okay? So Jesus is always there, accessible and available all the time. But we can also shut the door on Jesus, yeah? Do you know that? We can shut the door on him. We can keep him out if we want to. But he's knocking because he's polite. Can you let me in? Will you let me in your life? Will you let me in that area? Okay? And then over this side is the other door, isn't it? And on this door, you need to knock on it so that whatever's on the other side can open it and you can come in to it. Okay? So just as a picture, okay? So last week, you've heard the message. You just heard a little bit more of it as well. And like I said, the thought isn't the sin. Do you remember that? Yeah, so when the thought drops in, Satan's going to use thoughts all the time, okay? Things are going to drop into your life. There are always going to be things that are going to say, do the thing you shouldn't be doing, okay? The thought is not the sin. If for some reason the enemy's managed to get hold of us and make us condemned in that moment to say, well, you've already thought it, so you might as well just go all in because you're already in a bad place with God. And God's like, no, just take that thought captive and just get rid of that. Yeah, you don't need to do anything with it. So we take a thought and then we can decide, okay, this thought is messing with my head and it's causing me to want to go that way. Okay? So then what we might do is then we deliberately, this is what I was saying, we then deliberately choose to take that thought and we have to put that thought into action for it to turn into sin. Yeah? Just like if there's a thought that says, I should spend more time with Jesus, you need to deliberately move over and open the door. Yeah? You need to put it into action. It's a deliberate act, one way or the other. So if you're in the middle of the room and you are struggling with something that's on that door, maybe it says lust, maybe it says there's some kind of other addiction, maybe it's to do with your self-worth, whatever it might be, maybe feeling like I don't even want to be here, I don't want to, suicidal thoughts maybe, let's say, whatever it might be. Now that thought is dropped in. Why are you even here? What's the purpose of you living? Yeah? And you go, okay. Now I already know that God says I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I know the truth. We know the truth. But actually I'm still in this place. Now am I going to take that thought and am I going to turn it into like, oh, that sounds true. Yeah, I'm worthless. And like I said, we deliberately start to move towards the door of lacking self-worth. Now, what we need to do for that door to truly be open to our lives is we need to knock on the door. Yeah? So we need to become within arm's length of knocking on the door. So we have to take the thought, put it into a deliberate action to get closer so that we can knock. So if I'm preaching last week and I'm saying you don't need to do that anymore, okay? But you are stood here when you hear that message, when God moves, when the opportunity for prayer comes. If you're actually stood by this door at that moment, I need to change. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want to have these thoughts anymore that lead me to do things I shouldn't do. You're still here, which is within arm's length of the door. Yeah? It's there. So even though you might get prayer, if you actually haven't moved closer and further, more towards Jesus, then you're right next to the influence still. It's just there. I just need to knock. The further you are away, you still then, I can't actually knock. I'm going to have to move and then knock. And if you're further away, it gets more deliberate because you're like, man, I'm going to have to actually make some more deliberate steps to get to that door. And if you're closer to Jesus, then he's even further away. But now your eyes aren't even on that. Your eyes are on him. So now you can't even see it because you've deliberately started to walk away from it because your location really does matter. So if you're in this place and you're asking for change and you want to change, but you are still in the place of influence, then you're going to be able to access it because you haven't changed that much. God might have started something to help you change. But if you've got an addiction to alcohol, for example, or drugs, and you're still hanging around with people that do those things, or maybe like go into a shop or a pub or whatever, those things that you do, and you think, it's all right, I got prayer, I'm okay. But you're within arm's length of those things, it's so much easier to be like, I think I'm all right. Knock, knock, knock. And then you're like, I don't understand. I got prayer for it, and I don't understand. God's saying, you need to change your location. You need to move away from it. So actually, deliberately put yourself further away so it can't even knock on the door. And move closer to Jesus. Get closer to him. Move towards him so that actually now that change is starting to take place. And did you see what I was doing? It's not that you've changed. It's not like, Lord, change me. And you're here. It's, Lord, change me. Lord, will you help me? Can you help me, Lord? These thoughts, yeah? It's that we're moving towards where we need to be because we've been in this for such a long time that it's such an influence. It's not something that you're just going to run from. But you can deliberately start walking away from it. But if you don't, and then you're going, I don't understand why I'm still thinking the same things, doing the same thing, why this thing has power over me when I've had prayer. Well, Jesus has done everything. You know, he's broken every chain that can be broken. It's done. It's done in Jesus. If Jesus is praying over you, the chain's broken, it's broken. But if you're still stood in the place where the chains can be all thrown on top of you, there's only so much that Jesus can do there. If you're going to just start putting them on, Jesus is like, I've broken those chains. Why are you putting them back on? Move away from it. You need to change the location. You need to walk away. It's about walking away. It's about changing things. And it's being deliberate. And it sounds so, but that means I'm going to have to get rid of some people in my life. Yeah, for the sake of your soul and for the sake of actually like having a life that honors God. Yes. Remove those people. You might be able to go back to them after you sorted yourself out and bring Jesus to them and say, look, don't be like I was. Look what God's done in my life. And he could change it for you too. But right now, I can't change you. I can't even change myself. I need Jesus. So start moving towards him. Start moving away from the place of influence and towards Jesus. But take it a day by day, step by step. Get prayer, yes. But don't think everything's changed overnight. Realize that the next day you've got to take another step. And the next day take another step. And suddenly you're like, I'm not being influenced like I was before. Those thoughts aren't as strong as they were. That access to that stuff isn't as available. It's so much easier to say no. And you're moving away from it. Let's give you a biblical example. John chapter 5. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there in Jerusalem, by the sheep's gate, a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches, and these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first of the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he already had been in that condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" Don't you think Jesus is being a bit harsh here? Like, he's in a place that's full of sick people. It literally says it. It's a place full of sick people. In this place lay a great multitude of sick people. And Jesus turns up, goes to this guy, knowing that this guy has been in this situation for a long time, and says to him, "Do you want to be made well?" It's like, Jesus, seriously. Clearly, that's an obvious. The obvious answer is yes, isn't it? Isn't it the obvious answer? Like, obviously, do you really even need to ask that? Sometimes you just say, "Get up and walk." Like, why can't you just do that with the guy? Why do you have to ask him that question? It's such a strange question to ask because it seems like it has an obvious answer, but the sick man doesn't actually answer yes. Do you know this? Well, I'll prove it. It says, the sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up, but while I'm coming, another steps down before me." Jesus is like, I didn't ask for any of that information. I just asked if you wanted to be made well. And what he's doing is he's letting you know every reason why he can't change. He sat in the pool, he sat on his mat, or sat by the pool, sat on his mat, and Jesus says, "Do you want to be made well?" And he says, "It doesn't work. I've tried. I'm in this place. It doesn't change. Nothing's changing. So thanks for the offer, but it doesn't work. This thing doesn't work." And sickness holds many forms: physical, mental, and spiritual. Jesus is asking every single one of us, do you want to be made well? Do you know that? Because we're always going to have an element of sickness at some point. There's always going to be something that we need to put right. There's always going to be an area of our life that isn't quite aligning with what God wants in our lives, and he's going to say, "Do you want to be made well?" This question has been asked to the whole world. Do you want to be made well? Do you want to live the way that you're living? Do you really want to be in this pit still? Do you want to stay here? The answer is Jesus can take you out of it, but he's asking, are you happy where you are? And the truth is, like, I've just settled for it, really. This is just the way it is now. And that's what the guy's saying. He's like, this is just the way it is. I've been here for a very long time, but I'm not getting in there. No one's helping me. No one cares. Instead of saying yes to that question, and almost like, okay, Jesus, do whatever you need to do, we say things like, but life's not fair. But look at my circumstances. It's all easy for you to say, do you want to be made well? But look at, what I'm in, Lord. But also the opportunity and the challenge there is to change. The challenge is there to not be whatever it is that you need to be made well from in that moment. Just saying, do you want to be made well? The opportunity is there to say, I will take it. Please, God. And yet we like it sometimes still. We want to be there. We want to make excuses. And we don't change our location. Turn to the person next to you and say, keep the change. But that's the problem, isn't it? That is the problem, isn't it? Say again. Turn to the next person and say, keep the change. But that really is the problem. Because God has put in you the change. He's put it within you to change. He's given you the conviction to change. But when it gets tough and you start making excuses, oh, God's not doing what he should do. People didn't do what they could have done. Oh, I'm not worthy. When we start making the excuses, or we don't understand why it's still the same thing when we ask for change. I asked for it, God. I requested it. Why is it not changing? What we do is we say to God, well, you can keep your change. And we give it back to God. We say, I tried. I did everything I should have done. I did everything the pastor said. I did everything the worship team was saying. I did everything that the prayer team said. I did everything that the Bible was telling me to do. I've done everything, God. I got prayer. I did what I needed to do. It didn't work clearly. You can keep your change. We start change with good intentions, but we end up losing heart because wanting change is not enough. Saying it doesn't make it so. So we take that struggle and we end up giving the intention to change back to God. And we kind of say, well, I did try. It doesn't work. I tried. They failed. You failed. I failed. Life wasn't fair. It was too hard. So keep the change. When things get tough, we often point out why it didn't work. You know that? When life gets tough, we point out why it didn't work. Is anyone that kind of personality? Yeah? Yeah, it's all right? There's only one person in this room that's like that. Wow. You guys are amazing. Holy. When things get tough, we often point out why it didn't work. Well, I know why it didn't work. It was them. It was me. It was him. Yeah? Rather than look for the solution. There's always a solution. Can I tell you a secret? There's always a solution, right? I'm going to tell you it now. Jesus. Yeah. Shh, don't say it too loud. There's always a solution. Jesus has done everything. He's fixed everything. So if you need something fixing, he is the guy you go to. You get the yellow pages out, whatever the equivalent of that is now, some kind of app probably. Back in my day, it was a big yellow book. Okay, you find Jesus and you ring that number and he'll come and fix it. He's the answer. He's the solution. We're only pointing out, I don't get it. Why am I not changing? Well, Jesus is all the way over there. That's why. Get closer. Edge towards him. Get closer to the door so you can actually open it so he can come in and dine with you, hang out with you, walk with you, talk with you. Jesus said to him, rise up, take your bed and walk. And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. Now this is a simple lesson that can change your life. Change isn't change if you do not rise up and walk. If you stay in the place that's a mess and say, I want to change, nothing's gonna change. But if you rise up and walk away, change will start taking place. Walk away from the sickness. Walk away from the place of influence. That place, it dictates and it controls you. Until you choose to not only want to change, and say you want change, until you actually back it up with movement, you can have all the best intentions in the world, but the truth is you are still allowing that which you are in to be greater than the power of God. Because greater is he who is in you than he that is in the world. So why are we struggling? If he's in you, why are we struggling? If he's greater as he that's in you than he that's in the world, than Satan, than all the temptations this world has to offer, if that is the truth, why am I struggling? Because God's saying, because you stood exactly right in their camp. Move. If you want to walk away from that which has dictated to you in the wrong way, that which has controlled you, you have to move. You have to move. You have to walk away from it. Rise up and walk. We need to turn. I'm like sidestepping here, but really, that's not even good. That's not good theology. It's not sidestepping. It's turning your back, isn't it? Yeah? And that all that is in front of you is Jesus now. And then you're walking, step by step. So it's to turn away from it, to consciously choose to turn, not just to think it, not just to do that, but to actually put that into an action. So the thought becomes the action, like I said before. So you need to move with your change. Turn to the person next to you and say, you need to move with your change. And that day was the Sabbath, and the Jews therefore said to him who was cured, it is the Sabbath. It's not lawful for you to carry your bed. Get this? When God moves in your life, there will always be something or someone that will try and undo what Jesus has done. Yeah? And you can be that person too. But when God has moved in your life, there will always be something or someone that will come along to try and undo what Jesus has done in your life. This guy was carrying his bed. Now let me just picture this for you. He's carrying his bed under his arm and he's walking. The guy was lame. He couldn't move into the pool because everyone was quicker than him because he couldn't move. He was on that bed for 38 years. This thing was a major part of who he was. This bed, it was a sign of his infirmity. It was a sign of who he was, and he was stuck to it. It was probably the thing that was closest to him. It was the only thing that he had. And it was a representation of control. Because as long as he's lying on that mat, nothing's changing. Jesus comes along. Jesus comes along, yeah? He speaks life. Anyone thankful that Jesus came and spoke life into your life? Yeah? Yeah? Jesus came along and spoke life. And then he says, rise up, take that bed, put it under your arm, and walk. What he's saying is, take the thing that had an authority over you and control over you and put it under your arm. Yeah? So that you can have control now. Jesus is the authority. I'll say it again because obviously, Jesus is the authority. Yes. Jesus gives that authority over to you. Yes. That you now have authority over that which once had authority over you. Yeah? Jesus has all authority, and when he speaks life, he's giving you authority over the things that are manipulating you, controlling you. And he says, no. That used to have authority, but now pick it up, put it under your arm. Now, I don't know, this is my theory, but the right side is a sign of authority. The right hand is a sign of authority. I'm assuming that he probably had it under his arm, his right arm, because the right is a sign of authority. So he's carrying it and he's saying, yes, I'm no longer dictated to by this anymore. Jesus is the authority. He gives the authority. That which once had authority is no longer got the authority. Say that a few times. Okay. And yet, these clowns, these people are coming up to him and they're missing the miracle. They're missing the miracle of what God has done. Do you see? They're not even like, you're the dude that was not walking and now you're walking. They're just upset that he's not doing what they want him to do. He was messing with their system and their structure. This system, incidentally, hadn't healed or helped this man in 38 years. Verse 11, and he answered them, he who made me well said to me, take up your bed and walk. Who wants change to be permanent and powerful? Who wants your change to be permanent and powerful, yeah? All you need to do is what this guy did, okay? He answers like this. I don't know you guys, but that guy over there, he told me to rise up and take my bed. Sorry, I probably need to word it better than that. What I mean to say is the guy over there who made me whole, complete, well, healthy, true, sound, that guy, he told me to take up my bed and walk. I don't know who you are, but you didn't change my life. You didn't heal me. You didn't complete me. I've only just met this guy, and he has changed my life forever. You've been lingering around this place for years, and you've never helped me or anyone else in this area. He just walked in, and he's changed my life forever. You want to know why I'm carrying my bed when you think I shouldn't? Because I'm going with what he told me. I'm going to go with what he's done in my life. I'm going to follow what he said. You want your change to be permanent? When the distractions, the discouragement, and all the things that say, oh, was that really God? You say, yes, because I'm not going with what your words are and what you're saying. I'm going what he's done and what he said. And I'm standing on that. So you can say what you like, but I'm carrying my bed because I met Jesus and he changed my life. So if he's telling me to carry my bed, I'm doing that too. When change comes and you walk away from what was, remember you are going to need to respond to all the discouragement. This is the next step. This saves me preaching next week about this, okay? So we've gone from choice. Maybe you got the challenge, but you're stood by the door of influence. Today you've been taught to turn your back on the door because you want to change and now start walking, yeah? But understand, as you start walking away from something that's controlled you for so long, by people that have manipulated you for so long, yeah? They're not just going to let you go. Satan ain't just going to let you go. Okay? So you need to get this. You need to respond to all the discouragements, all the situations that will try to get you back where you once were. And this is how you do it. You see, think about it. If Jesus hadn't done what he had done and hadn't spoke life and the guy hadn't risen up, he would still be sat there by the pool, yeah? But what Satan does is instead of getting the influence where someone comes to you at that moment and says, it's amazing. Wow, I can't believe you're healed. I can't believe you've been transformed. Man, you're so different. You used to be this type of person, but since you got Jesus, you're like this. Has anyone had that? It's usually the other way around. It's like, since you got Jesus, you're boring. Since you got Jesus, I didn't really like hanging around with you anymore. And you're like, oh no, do I have to give in to them now? Because I really think I shouldn't be around that influence anymore, but I feel really hurt that I should be more where they are now. And they said horrible things about Jesus, and I don't want to be hated, you know. Sometimes people recognize and they see change in a positive light. But a lot of the time, why is it that your friends that were not saved at the same time you weren't saved are suddenly now not your friends? Because Jesus came in your life? And it's not really that you push them away because you don't want to hang out with them or you don't want to see them come to Christ. It's that they just make it really hard for you to walk with him. So you need to know that as you turn your back and you start walking towards Jesus, the discouragement's going to come, the stuff will come, and this doesn't end. This isn't a one-time only story. This isn't just a one-time only journey. This is what happens throughout our walk with God. We end up by this door far too often than we'd like to admit, but it happens. It's okay. It's part of our life. We're flesh. But the reality of it is, we turn our back and we start walking towards Jesus. And then people say, oh no, they're pulling me back. And then we go, no, I don't want it. Snip. And you walk. Get some scissors, spiritual scissors. Or a sword. Sword of the Spirit. That's better. Okay. We're like... Yep. This is just a little response I wrote. You can use it if you want, but don't blame me. I'm not sure who you think you are in my life, but the one who saved me, the one who restored me, the one who healed me, the one who redeemed me, the one who set me free, the one that gave me hope, the one that blessed me, the one that forgave me, the one that changed me, the one that gave me a second chance, the one that spoke life into me, and he calls me friend, by the way, and he knows my name. That's written in here, Rob and Daisy. And he knows my name, and he created me, and he made a way where there was no way. I'm going to go with what he told me. I don't know who you are, but you ain't speaking life into me like he did. You're not changing my life like he did. He changed me, he transformed me, and therefore I ain't staying in this location any longer because I want change. I want change. This is how you respond. When change comes, what you do next matters. Who you believe next also matters. Verse 12, we're at the end now. Then they asked him, who is the man who said to you, take up your bed and walk? But the one who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, a multitude being in that place. Afterwards, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, see, you have been made well. Sin no more, lest the worst thing come upon you. Verse 15, the man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. I just want to point out here, Jesus heals him. He comes away from the place known as sickness. It's pretty much known for being a sick place. All the sick people hang out there. Jesus says, rise up, take your bed, and walk. He goes to the temple. He goes to the place of praise. Yeah. That's what we need to do. When change comes and we're in the place of influence, this guy at that moment could have just walked straight back into the place of sickness. It's all he's ever known. 38 years of only knowing that. 38 years of being so close to this mat and it being such a strong hold over his life, you wouldn't have questioned him for going back to that place, sitting back on the mat and just being back where he was, back in his spot, because he's not known anything else. Because if you stay in the place of influence, that is what's going to influence you. And that's why Jesus says, he doesn't say, rise up, take your bed and stand here. He says, walk. Because he says, you need to get out of this place. This is a place of influence. And it's only got sickness around it. And you're no longer sick. So when you respond to God and you say, Lord, I don't want to be sick anymore. I don't want this addiction anymore. I don't want this thought anymore. I don't want this way of thinking or this way of being anymore. And Jesus comes and sets you free. If there isn't change, it's because you're still in the place of sickness. You're still sat in it, and you're still going and knocking on the door because you put yourself too close to it. It's time to move away from the place of influence. Verse 15, the man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. Just say that again. The man, what did he do? The man departed. The man moved. The man left. To depart is to leave. He walked away from what he used to be. And told everyone about Jesus. Jesus said, rise up, take your bed, and walk. Rise up is the direct declaration of your healing or your restoration. That's what Jesus is saying over everyone. Do you want to be made well? He's done it. You just need to receive it. He's done it. You want to be made well? You want to be made well? You want this addiction to go? You want this to change? That's the declaration. Rise up. Take up. Yeah, take up your bed. Take up is the understanding that now God has transferred the authority of that thing into your arms. So rise up, take up. Okay? That's the first two things. But so far, you still stood in the same place. Walk is to take you away from where you were. You want to know why things aren't changing? Because maybe you've risen up. Maybe you've even taken up, but you haven't walked. You still stood in the pit. You're still influenced and surrounded by the stuff that controls you, the people that control you. If you want to change, true, unequivocal change that will lead you into a victorious life, you need to depart all that can influence and keep you from changing. Stop telling God to keep the change and embrace the change by choosing to depart. It's time to move with your change. Turn to the person next to you and say, can I have my change back?